It was very strong comments, Pete. It's interesting. I mean, Mike Pompeo deliberately mentioned Australia in a litany of criticism of China about the pandemic and their response to it. And I thought it's interesting that he really made a point of emphasising Australia. And the Washington is very pleased with the way the Morrison government is taking on Beijing. It's very pleased with the fact that the Morrison government hasn't taken a backward step on the issue of the inquiry, despite the retaliatory tariffs imposed by China. And so I think Pompeo, in saying that today, was really sending that message of solidarity. And it's interesting that Donald Trump also, Pete, chose that moment to really launch a strong attack on China. The Trump administration, it really is a full court press on China at the moment, and Australia is seen as a part of it.
Yeah. Does that hurt or hinder us, do you think, Cam?
Look, I personally think it's a good thing for Australia. I think Australia rightly thinks that it should have a basic independent inquiry into the virus. I mean, it's turned the world upside down, and I think if Australia refused to actually say that sort of stuff openly, simply because it feared retaliation, then we'd be a lesser nation for it.
Okay, let's talk about these US polls that seem to suggest that the majority of people are falling in behind the White House in terms of its attitudes towards China at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. The new poll today, Pete, saying that there's been a sharp rise in the number of Americans who see China as an enemy. It's a fairly sharp word, and a fall in the number that see it as a friend or an ally. It's interesting because both sides of politics here in America, as you know, is so divided politically, such a partisan sort of environment. But on China, it's really quite bipartisan. Both the Republicans and the Democrats, if you like, are trying to outflank each other to be tougher on China. So that means the political mood in America for the rest of this year leading up to the election will be very hostile towards Beijing. So I think you're going to see even greater polls in the future that show a move against China with public opinion. So it's going to be a really lively issue during the election, and I think the Trump administration is very happy for that to be the case.
Well, speaking of the administration, Donald Trump wants the G7 to go ahead, and possibly even by June. Is that going to happen?
Look, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream from Donald Trump, but certainly he said it today. He's flagged the possibility of having the G7 meeting in person here in Washington. Now, of course, that was originally scheduled, Pete, for mid-June to be in person at Camp David. But then with the pandemic, everyone decided to do it by video. Look, it's scheduled to be only in 3 weeks' time. It seems like a big call to get the 7 world leaders over to the US. So I don't think it will happen, but you never know. I mean, the states are opening up, and Donald Trump would love to send that message. He said it would send us a great message to the rest of the world about reopening again after the coronavirus pandemic.
Cam, is the US, or how much is the US concerned about a second wave? I mean, everyone's talking about that now as all these economies get to reopen, but that also comes with the fear that, well, could be worse the second time around.
Definitely. Look, I mean, another poll today showed that just over half of all Americans, 54%, greatly fear a second wave coming. But look, Pete, the mood in America is such that, it's a terribly conflicted situation here, as it is in a lot of the Western world. Great fear of the second wave, but there's a big economy and people are really hurting. And so people are just going out and trying to reopen as best as they can, as safely as they can. But they are fearful because, all the scientists keep saying the moment you do reopen, of course, you get more virus cases. And of course, we won't really know what the situation is going to be for about another month, because there's quite a lag time between the infections and people getting sick. So people are nervous at this time because they're just not sure what's going to happen over here.